The rain pelted the cracked window panes of Charlotte Diaz's cramped apartment in the heart of the Bronx, New York, each drop a mocking echo of the life she'd been piecing together with trembling hands. The world outside was a gray blur, but inside the dim glow of a single lamp cast shadows across the worn furniture, illuminating the chaos of her reality. On the cluttered coffee table sat an empty can of baby formula, its metallic sheen taunting her with its emptiness. Charlotte, a 32-year-old black single mother with skin like polished ebony and eyes that held both fire and fatigue, sat on the edge of her threadbare couch, her fingers calloused from long shifts as a nurse at Jacobi Medical Center hovered over her phone. The hum of the ancient air conditioner filled the small space, a grating reminder of the fragility of her existence. Her daughter Ava slept in the next room, her tiny chest rising and falling in blissful ignorance of the storm brewing in her mother's heart. Charlotte's breath hitched as she typed a message to her best friend Maya, her lifeline through countless sleepless nights. "Hey Maya, can you spot me some cash for Ava's formula? Just until payday. I hate asking again." The words felt like shards of glass in her throat, each one a confession of her failure to provide. She wasn't supposed to be here scraping by in a one-bedroom apartment with peeling wallpaper and a landlord who knocked too often. She was supposed to be whole, not this fractured version of herself, clinging to pride like a lifeline. Her finger hesitated over the send button, her pride warring with her desperation. Ava needed her. She pressed send. The phone vibrated almost instantly, but instead of Maya's usual quick reply, the screen flashed a name that stopped her heart cold: Adam Griffin, her ex-husband, the man who'd walked away 4 years ago, leaving her pregnant and broken, chasing dreams of silicon and steel in the glittering towers of Manhattan. Adam, a 35-year-old white tech mogul with sharp blue eyes and a jawline that graced magazine covers, was now the CEO of Griffin Innovations, a name synonymous with wealth and power. His face, once so familiar, now stared out from Forbes and CNBC, a stranger in a tailored suit. Charlotte's breath caught as she realized her mistake. The message meant for Maya had gone to him. "No," she whispered, her voice barely audible over the rain. Her fingers fumbled trying to unsend the message, but her phone betrayed her, freezing for a moment before another notification lit up the screen. A banking app alert. Her heart pounded as she opened it, her eyes scanning the words that didn't make sense. Deposit $50,000. Sender Griffin Innovations. Corporate account. Her hand flew to her mouth, stifling a gasp. $50,000. For formula, the room spun, the walls of her tiny apartment closing in. This had to be a mistake. Adam hadn't spoken to her in years, hadn't cared enough to check on her or the daughter he'd left behind. Why now? Her phone buzzed again, this time with a text from Adam. "I'm coming over." The words were simple, but they hit like a thunderclap. Charlotte's pulse thundered in her ears, her mind racing with panic. "No, no, no," she muttered, typing frantically. "Wrong person. Ignore that, please." She hit send, her hands shaking so badly she nearly dropped the phone. But before she could process the weight of her error, a sharp knock echoed through the apartment, cutting through the rain's relentless rhythm. Her heart lurched. He couldn't be here already. Manhattan was miles away, a world apart from the Bronx's gritty streets. Another knock, louder, more insistent. Charlotte stood, her legs unsteady, and crossed the room, each step heavier than the last. She smoothed her worn scrubs, a futile attempt to reclaim some control. Her hand hovered over the doorknob, her breath shallow. She opened the door, and there he was, Adam Griffin, standing in her doorway, like a ghost from a life she'd tried to forget. His tailored navy suit was damp from the rain, but it did nothing to diminish the commanding presence that filled the space. His pale skin glistened under the hallway's flickering light, his blue eyes locking onto hers, with an intensity that made her knees weak. He was taller than she remembered, or perhaps it was the weight of his wealth that made him seem so. The boy she'd loved, the one who'd whispered promises under Brooklyn's starlit skies, was gone. In his place stood a billionaire, untouchable and unreadable. Charlotte. He said, his voice a low rumble that stirred memories she'd buried deep. We need to talk. Her throat tightened, words caught like thorns. What are you doing here, Adam? She managed her voice sharp despite the tremble. You can't just show up like this. His gaze softened, but only slightly as he stepped forward uninvited into her apartment. The small space seemed to shrink under his presence, the air thick with the scent of his cologne. Something expensive, unfamiliar. You sent me a message, he said, his tone calm, but weighted. You need help. It was a mistake, she snapped, crossing her arms over her chest. I meant to send it to Maya. I don't need you, Adam. I never have. The lie burned her tongue, but she held his gaze, refusing to let him see the cracks in her armor. He tilted his head, studying her. $50,000 says otherwise. His lips curved into a faint, almost sad smile. It's in your account, Charlotte. It's done. Her breath hitched, anger and humiliation warring within her. You think you can throw money at me and fix everything? You left Adam. You left us. The word us slipped out before she could stop it, heavy with the weight of their shared past. Ava. Their daughter was the unspoken bridge between them, the one thing he'd never acknowledged. His expression flickered regret, maybe, or guilt, but it was gone as quickly as it came. I know I left, he said, his voice quieter now, almost raw. And I know I can't undo that. But Ava's my daughter too, Charlotte. I'm not walking away this time. The words hit her like a tidal wave, stirring a storm of emotions she wasn't ready to face. Ava was hers, her reason for fighting through every sleepless night, every double shift, every moment of despair. Adam had no right to claim her now, not after abandoning them when she needed him most. You don't get to say that, she said, her voice trembling with fury. You don't get to waltz back into our lives and act like you care. I do care, he said, stepping closer, his eyes searching hers. I've cared every day since I left. I just didn't know how to show it. Her heart twisted, caught between the ache of old wounds and the flicker of something she couldn't name. She wanted to scream, to push him out, to erase him from her life again. But the money in her account, the empty formula, can the sleeping child in the next room, they anchored her to a reality she couldn't ignore. She needed help, and he was offering it, whether she liked it or not. Adam. I can't do this, she whispered, her voice breaking. Not with you. He didn't move, didn't look away. Then let me prove it to you, he said softly. Let me show you I'm not the man who left. Before she could respond, another knock came, softer this time, hesitant. Charlotte froze, her eyes darting to the door. Adam's brow furrowed, his posture tensing. Expecting someone? He asked. She shook her head, her pulse quickening. No, she said, her voice barely above a whisper. She moved to the door, her hand trembling as she opened it. There was no one there, just a small envelope on the doorstep, her name scrawled in sharp, unfamiliar handwriting. She picked it up, her fingers cold, and tore it open. Inside was a single photograph of Ava taken that morning at the park, her tiny figure laughing on a swing. Written on the back in red ink were the words, "Be careful who you trust." Charlotte's blood ran cold. She looked up at Adam, the photograph trembling in her hand. "What have you done?" she whispered, her voice laced with fear. His eyes darkened as he took the photo, his jaw tightening. "I don't know," he said, his voice low and dangerous. "But I'm going to find out." The rain outside grew louder, a relentless drumbeat against the windows. Charlotte clutched the photograph, her heart pounding, with a mix of dread and determination. Whatever Adam had brought back into her life, it was bigger than either of them, and she wasn't sure she was ready for what came next. What happens when a billionaire's past collides with a mother's fierce love? Follow Charlotte and Adam as their story unfolds, where trust is fragile. Secrets lurk in the shadows, and redemption comes at a price. Stay tuned for the next chapter of their journey. The air in Charlotte Diaz's cramped Bronx apartment felt heavier than usual, thick with the ghosts of words left unsaid and the sharp edge of fear. The rain had stopped, leaving behind a damp chill that seeped through the walls, but the photograph of Ava with its cryptic warning, scrawled in red ink, burned in Charlotte's hands. She stood frozen, her eyes locked on Adam Griffin, who held the photo with a grip that betrayed his calm facade. His tailored suit, still damp from the storm, clung to his frame, but it was the storm in his blue eyes that held her captive: anger, guilt, and something deeper, something she wasn't ready to name. "What is this?" Charlotte's voice was low, trembling with a mix of fury and dread. She stepped back, putting distance between them, as if his presence alone could unravel her carefully stitched life. "You show up after years, throw money at me, and now this. Someone's watching my daughter." Adam's jaw tightened, his fingers curling around the photograph. "I didn't do this, Charlotte," he said, his voice steady but laced with urgency. "But I'm going to find out who did. I promise you that." "Promises." She spat, her laugh bitter. "Your promises didn't mean much when you walked out on us." The words cut through the air, sharp and unforgiving, dragging up the pain of 4 years ago, when he'd left her alone in a Brooklyn hospital room, her belly swollen with Ava, and her heart shattered. She wanted to hate him, to shove him out the door and lock it forever. But the photograph in his hand anchored her to a new reality, one where Ava's safety was at stake. Adam set the photo on the coffee table, his movements deliberate, as if handling a live grenade. "I know I hurt you," he said, his voice softer now, almost pleading. "But this isn't about us right now. It's about Ava. Let me help." Charlotte's chest tightened, her pride warring with the instinct to protect her daughter. She turned away, her gaze falling on the empty formula can, a stark reminder of her own limitations. "Help," she said, her voice cracking. "You think you can fix this with your money? Someone's out there, Adam, watching my baby, watching us. I'm not just throwing money at this," he said, stepping closer, his presence filling the small room. "I have resources, people who can track this down. Let me use them." His eyes searched hers, and for a moment she saw the man she'd once loved, the one who'd held her hand under the Brooklyn Bridge, whispering dreams of a future they'd never had. But that man was gone, replaced by this stranger in a suit, wielding power she couldn't comprehend. Before she could respond, a soft cry broke the tension. "Ava." Charlotte's heart lurched, and she brushed past Adam, her shoulder grazing his as she hurried to the bedroom. Her daughter stirred under a faded quilt, her tiny face flushed from sleep. "Mommy," Ava murmured, her voice groggy, her dark curls spilling across the pillow. "It's okay, sweetheart," Charlotte whispered, kneeling beside the bed. She smoothed Ava's hair, her touch gentle but trembling. "Go back to sleep." As Ava's eyes fluttered shut, Charlotte's resolve hardened. She couldn't let whoever sent that photo get near her daughter. But could she trust Adam to stop them? When she returned to the living room, Adam was on his phone, his voice low and commanding. "I need a full sweep," he said. "Start with the metadata on that photo. I want a name by morning." He hung up, his eyes meeting hers. "My security team's already on it," he said. "They'll find out who sent this." Charlotte crossed her arms, her skepticism a shield. And what if they don't? What if this is just the beginning? Her voice wavered, betraying the fear she tried to hide. "I've built a life for Ava, Adam. It's not perfect, but it's ours. I can't let you or whoever this is destroy it." "I'm not here to destroy anything," he said, his tone firm, but not unkind. "I'm here to protect you both. Whether you believe it or not, I care about Ava and you." The last words hung in the air, fragile and dangerous, stirring memories Charlotte had fought to bury. She wanted to dismiss them, to call them lies, but the sincerity in his eyes made her pause. "Don't," she said, her voice barely above a whisper. "Don't say things you don't mean." She turned away, her hands clenching into fists. "You left us, Adam. You chose your empire over your family. You don't get to come back now and play hero." His silence was deafening, and when she dared to glance at him, she saw his shoulders slump just slightly. "I was wrong," he said finally, his voice raw. "I thought leaving was the only way to keep you from being dragged into my world. I was scared, Charlotte, scared I'd fail you, like my father failed my mother." He paused, his gaze dropping to the floor. "But I failed you anyway." The confession hit her like a wave, stirring a tangle of emotions, anger, sorrow, and a flicker of understanding she didn't want to feel. She remembered the stories he'd told her late at night about his father's obsession with work, how it had torn his family apart. But understanding didn't erase the pain. "You don't get to use that as an excuse," she said, her voice trembling. "You left me alone, Adam, pregnant and alone." "I know," he said, his voice breaking, "and I'll carry that guilt for the rest of my life. But I'm here now, and I'm not leaving again. Not unless you tell me to." Charlotte's throat tightened, her eyes burning with unshed tears. She wanted to tell him to go, to banish him from her life, once and for all. But the photograph on the table, the threat it carried, stopped her. She couldn't do this alone. Not this time. Before she could respond, her phone buzzed, shattering the moment. She snatched it up, her heart pounding, as she saw an email from an unknown sender. Her fingers trembled as she opened it. Another photo, this time of Ava at her daycare, her tiny hands clutching a crayon. The message read, "You can't hide. Pay up, or the world knows Griffin's secrets." Charlotte's blood ran cold, her breath catching as she showed the phone to Adam. His face darkened, his jaw clenching with barely restrained fury. "They're escalating," he said, his voice low and dangerous. "But they've made a mistake. They're getting sloppy." He pulled out his phone, typing rapidly. "My team's tracing the email now. We'll have a location soon." Charlotte's hands shook as she set the phone down. "They know where Ava goes to daycare," she whispered, her voice breaking. "They're watching her, Adam. What if they—" She couldn't finish the sentence, the thought too unbearable. Adam stepped closer, his hand hovering near her shoulder, before he pulled back as if afraid to cross a line. "I won't let anything happen to her," he said, his voice steady despite the storm in his eyes. "Or to you, I swear it." She wanted to believe him, to lean into the strength he offered, but trust was a fragile thing shattered by years of absence. "Why now, Adam?" she asked, her voice soft but piercing. "Why do you care now?" He met her gaze unflinching. "Because I never stopped caring," he said. "I just didn't know how to come back. Until now." The words hung between them, heavy with possibility and pain. Charlotte's heart ached, torn between the man he'd been and the man standing before her now. Outside, the Bronx hummed with life car horns, distant sirens, the pulse of a city that never slept. But in this moment, it was just them two broken souls, bound by a daughter and a threat neither could ignore. The Bronx morning broke with a brittle edge, the sky a muted gray that mirrored the tension coiled in Charlotte Diaz's chest. Her small apartment, once a sanctuary for her and Ava, now felt like a cage, each creak of the floorboards a reminder of the unseen eyes watching them. The photographs, first from the park, then from Ava's daycare, lay on the coffee table like landmines, their cryptic warnings etched into Charlotte's mind. She hadn't slept, her eyes burning, as she sat at the kitchen table, a cold cup of coffee cradled in her hands. Adam Griffin stood across the room, his phone pressed to his ear, his voice a low, urgent murmur as he coordinated with his security team. The tailored lines of his suit were rumpled now, his hair disheveled, but the fire in his eyes burned brighter than ever. Charlotte's gaze flickered to him, her heart a battlefield of distrust and reluctant gratitude. He'd stayed through the night, refusing to leave, despite her protests, his presence both a comfort and a wound. She wanted to push him away, to reclaim the independence she'd fought for since he'd left her 4 years ago. But the threat against Ava tethered her to him. Any leads? She asked, her voice sharp, cutting through the hum of his conversation. Adam lowered the phone, his expression grim but focused. They traced the second email to a server in Jersey City, he said. It's a burner account, but my team's digging deeper. We'll have something soon. He paused, his eyes softening as they met hers. I meant what I said, Charlotte. I won't let anyone touch Ava. Her lips pressed into a thin line. The words she wanted to say, accusations, doubts caught in her throat. Instead, she stood pacing the small living room, her bare feet cold against the worn linoleum. You keep saying that, she said, her voice low but laced with venom. But words don't stop whoever's out there. They know where my daughter goes. They know where we live. She stopped, her hands trembling as she faced him. This is your world, Adam, not mine. Your money, your enemies. This is because of you. His jaw tightened, but he didn't look away. I know, he said, his voice steady, despite the weight of her words. And I'll fix it. I owe you that much. Owe me? She laughed, a hollow sound that echoed her exhaustion. You think this is about settling a debt? This is about Ava's safety, my daughter, who I've raised alone while you built your empire. Her voice cracked, betraying the raw edge of her fear. She turned away, her hands gripping the edge of the counter, trying to anchor herself against the storm inside her. Adam stepped closer, his voice softening. I'm not trying to buy forgiveness, Charlotte. I'm trying to keep you both safe. Let me do this, please. His hand hovered near her shoulder, but he didn't touch her, as if sensing the invisible wall she'd built between them. Before she could respond, her phone buzzed on the table, the sound jarring in the quiet room. Her heart lurched as she grabbed it, dreading another chilling message. It was a news alert from the New York Post. Billionaire Adam Griffin's mystery. Payments to ex-wife spark speculation. Her breath caught, her fingers tightening around the phone. They know, she whispered, her voice barely audible. The media, they know about the money. Adam moved to her side, his eyes scanning the screen. His expression darkened, but his voice remained calm. This was inevitable, he said. Money like that doesn't move quietly. But I'll handle it. My PR team's already drafting a statement to redirect the narrative. Redirect. Charlotte's voice rose, her fear morphing into anger. This isn't just a story, Adam. They'll dig into my life, Ava's life. They'll turn us into some tabloid spectacle. She shoved the phone at him. the headline glaring like an accusation. "You did this. You brought this into our world." He took the phone, his fingers brushing hers for a fleeting moment, sending an unwanted spark through her. "I didn't mean for this to happen," he said, his voice low, almost raw. "But I'm not going to let it hurt you. I'll keep the press away, I swear." She pulled her hand back, the warmth of his touch lingering like a betrayal. "You can't control everything," she said, her voice trembling. "Not the press, not whoever's sending those photos. You're not a god, Adam, no matter how much money you have." His eyes flickered with something, pain perhaps, or the weight of her truth. But before he could respond, another buzz interrupted them. This time, it was his phone. He glanced at the screen, his face hardening. "It's my team," he said, stepping away to answer. "What do you have?" His voice shifted sharp and commanding as he listened. After a moment, he hung up, his expression unreadable. "What is it?" Charlotte asked, her stomach twisting. "They found a name," he said, his voice low. "Carter Hayes. He was a partner in my first startup. I cut him out after I caught him siphoning funds, millions. He swore he'd make me pay." Adam's eyes met hers, a storm brewing behind them. "He's behind the emails, Charlotte. And he's not working alone." Her knees went weak, and she sank onto the couch, the weight of his words crushing her. "Not alone," she whispered. "What does that mean?" Adam crouched in front of her, his gaze steady but urgent. "It means he's got help. Someone who knows your routines, Ava's routines. But my team's tracking every move. We'll find him." Charlotte's mind raced, images of Ava's innocent smile flashing before her. "How do they know so much about us?" she asked, her voice breaking. "They've been to her daycare, Adam. They've been to the park. What if they're outside right now?" He reached for her hand, and this time she didn't pull away. His touch was warm, grounding despite the chaos. "They won't get near her," he said, his voice fierce. "I've got people watching the building, the daycare, everywhere you go. You're not alone in this." Her eyes burned with tears she refused to let fall. She wanted to believe him, to lean into the strength he offered, but trust was a fragile thing, and hers had been shattered long ago. "I don't know how to do this," she admitted, her voice barely above a whisper. "I don't know how to protect her from this." "You don't have to do it alone," Adam said, his thumb brushing lightly over her knuckles. "I'm here, Charlotte. I know I don't deserve your trust, but I'm asking for it. For Ava." She looked into his eyes, searching for the man she'd once loved, the one who'd promised her forever before breaking her heart. He was different now. Harder, yes. But there was a vulnerability there too. A crack in the armor of the billionaire he'd become. She pulled her hand away, her heart aching with the weight of her decision. "I don't trust you," she said softly. "But I don't have a choice." Adam nodded, his expression pained but resolute. "That's enough for now," he said. He stood, pulling out his phone again. "I need to meet with my team. We're close to pinning Hayes down. Stay here. Keep the doors locked. I'll be back soon." As he moved toward the door, Charlotte's voice stopped him. "Adam," she said, her tone softer, but still edged with steel. "If anything happens to Ava because of this, I'll never forgive you." He paused, his hand on the doorknob, his back to her. "If anything happens to her," he said quietly, "I'll never forgive myself." The door closed behind him, leaving Charlotte alone in the suffocating silence. She picked up the photographs, her fingers tracing Ava's face, her heart pounding with a mother's fierce love. Outside, the Bronx buzzed with life, but inside the walls seemed to close in the threat of Carter Hayes looming like a shadow she couldn't escape. The dim glow of dusk seeped through the curtains of Charlotte Diaz's Bronx apartment, casting long shadows across the room. The air was thick with unspoken fears, each creak of the old building, a reminder of the danger lurking just beyond her door. Charlotte sat on the edge of her couch, her hands clasped tightly, her eyes fixed on the photographs of Ava, snapshots of her daughter's innocence, now tainted by Carter Hayes' threats. The latest email demanding a meeting at the Plaza Hotel with Ava in tow lay open on her phone, its words a cold weight in her chest. Adam Griffin stood by the window, his silhouette sharp against the fading light, his phone pressed to his ear as he issued clipped orders to his security team. The tension between them was a living thing, a fragile thread stretched taut by years of betrayal and the fragile hope of redemption. Charlotte's voice broke the silence, sharp and unsteady. "You're not going to that meeting, Adam. It's a trap." Her words carried the weight of a mother's terror, her fingers digging into the couch as she fought to keep her composure. The thought of Ava anywhere near Carter Hayes, or whoever else was pulling his strings, made her stomach churn. Adam lowered the phone, his gaze meeting hers, resolute but shadowed with doubt. "I have to," he said, his voice low, carrying a conviction that both reassured and infuriated her. "Hayes wants me, not you. If I don't show, he'll escalate. I won't let him get to Ava." "You don't know what he'll do," Charlotte countered, standing to face him, her heart pounding. "You're walking into his game, Adam. What if he's not alone? What if—" Her voice cracked the unspoken fear, too heavy to voice. She turned away, her hands trembling as she pressed them to her face, trying to hold back the panic clawing at her. Adam stepped closer, his presence warm and overwhelming in the small space. "I've got a team in place," he said, his tone softer now, almost pleading. "Ex-FBI, the best in the city. They'll be at the plaza before I even walk in. Hayes won't touch me or you." He paused, his hand hovering near her arm, as if afraid to cross the chasm between them. "I know I've given you no reason to trust me, Charlotte, but I need you to believe I'd die before I let anything happen to Ava." Her breath hitched his words, stirring a storm of emotions she'd buried long ago. She wanted to scream at him, to remind him of the nights she'd cried alone, pregnant and abandoned, while he built his empire in Manhattan's glittering towers. But the sincerity in his eyes, the raw edge to his voice, made her pause. "You don't get to make promises like that," she whispered, her voice trembling. "Not after everything." "I know," he said, his voice barely above a whisper, "but I'm making them anyway." He stepped back, giving her space, his jaw tight with resolve. "Stay here with Ava. Keep the doors locked. My team's watching the building." Charlotte's gaze flicked to the bedroom door, where Ava slept, oblivious to the chaos threatening to engulf them. "And if this goes wrong," she asked, her voice breaking, "what do I tell her, Adam? That her father walked into a trap and left us again?" His expression faltered, a flicker of pain crossing his features. "You won't have to," he said, his voice steady, despite the weight of her words. "I'm coming back, Charlotte, for both of you." He turned to leave, slipping a small earpiece into his ear, his movements precise, like a man preparing for battle. Charlotte watched him go, her heart a tangled knot of fear and reluctant hope. The door closed with a soft click, and the silence that followed was suffocating. She sank onto the couch, her hands clutching her phone, the minutes stretching into an agonizing eternity. Each tick of the clock was a hammer against her nerves. She checked her phone obsessively, waiting for news, her mind conjuring images of Adam facing Carter Hayes in the opulent halls of the plaza. She imagined the worst gunfire betrayal, Ava's name splashed across headlines. To distract herself, she tiptoed to Ava's room, watching her daughter's peaceful face, her tiny hand curled around a stuffed rabbit. The sight grounded her, a reminder of why she had to stay strong, even as her world teetered on the edge. Hours later, her phone finally rang Adam's name, flashing on the screen. She answered with a trembling hand, her voice barely a whisper. "Adam." "It's over," he said, his voice rough with exhaustion but steady. "Hayes is in custody. It's done." Relief flooded her so intense it left her dizzy. She sank onto the couch, her breath shaky. "What happened?" she asked, her voice barely holding together. It was a bluff. Adam said, his words clipped, but tinged with relief. "Hayes was desperate, trying to scare me into paying him off. He had no real leverage, just a few photos and a lot of threats. My team caught him at the plaza with a laptop full of evidence. The FBI has him now." Charlotte closed her eyes, the weight of the past few days crashing over her. "And the others?" she asked, her voice tight. "You said he wasn't alone." "We're still tracking them," Adam admitted. "Hayes had a contact feeding him information, someone who knew your routines. But he's not talking yet. My team's on it, and the FBI's digging deeper." She nodded, though he couldn't see her, her mind racing with questions she wasn't ready to ask. "Are we safe?" she whispered, her voice raw. "For now," he said, his tone softening. "I'm coming back to the apartment. We need to talk about Ava, about us." The word "us" hung in the air, heavy with possibility and pain. Charlotte's heart ached, torn between the man who'd broken her and the one who'd just risked everything to protect her daughter. "Just come back," she said, her voice barely audible. "We'll figure it out." When Adam arrived, the air between them crackled with unspoken truths. He looked worn, his suit jacket discarded, his shirt sleeves rolled up as if he'd fought a war. Charlotte stood, her arms crossed, her defenses still up. "You did it," she said, her voice soft but guarded. "You stopped him." He nodded, his eyes searching hers. "I told you I would." He paused, stepping closer, his voice dropping. "But this isn't over, Charlotte. Whoever was helping Hayes, they're still out there. And the press. They're not done with us." Her stomach twisted, the weight of his words settling like a stone. "What do we do now?" she asked, her voice trembling despite her resolve. "We face it together," he said, his gaze unwavering. "I know I don't deserve a second chance, but I'm asking for one. Not just for Ava, but for you." Charlotte's breath caught, her heart warring with itself. She wanted to push him away, to protect the life she'd built without him. But as she looked into his eyes, she saw something new, a man willing to fight, not just for her daughter, but for the possibility of something more. The photographs still lay on the table, a reminder of the danger they'd faced, but also of the fragile bridge forming between them. "Okay," she said softly, her voice barely a whisper. "But this doesn't mean forgiveness, Adam. It means a chance. Don't make me regret it." He nodded, a faint smile breaking through the tension. "I won't," he said, his voice thick with emotion. And in that moment, with the city humming outside and Ava sleeping soundly in the next room, Charlotte felt the first stirrings of something she hadn't felt in years, a hope. The late summer sun dipped low over Central Park, painting the sky in hues of amber, and rose a soft glow that seemed to soften the edges of Charlotte Diaz's weary heart. She sat on a wooden bench near the Bethesda fountain, her eyes fixed on Ava, who giggled as she chased a butterfly across the grass. The park was alive with the hum of families, joggers, and street musicians. But for Charlotte, the world had narrowed to her daughter's laughter, a sound that anchored her through the chaos of the past weeks. The photographs, the threats from Carter Hayes, the media frenzy, they lingered like shadows, but their grip had loosened. Adam Griffin sat beside her, his presence both familiar and foreign, his hands clasped loosely in his lap as he watched Ava with a quiet intensity. The air between them was softer now, not free of tension, but woven with a tentative hope that neither dared to name. Charlotte's fingers toyed with the hem of her sweater, her mind replaying the moment Adam had returned from the Plaza Hotel, his voice rough with exhaustion, but steady with triumph. Hayes was in custody, his accomplices under investigation, and the media storm had been tamed by Adam's lawyers. Yet the quiet that followed wasn't peaceful. It was heavy laden with questions about what came next. She glanced at Adam, his profile sharp against the sunset, and felt a pang of something she hadn't allowed herself to feel in years' possibility. "You're good with her," she said, breaking the silence, her voice soft but steady. She nodded toward Ava, who was now attempting to balance on a low stone wall, her tiny hands outstretched like wings. Adam had spent the morning with them, pushing Ava on the swings, his laughter mingling with hers, in a way that stirred memories Charlotte had tried to bury. Adam's lips curved into a faint smile, but his eyes stayed on Ava. "She makes it easy," he said, his voice low, tinged with a warmth that caught Charlotte off guard. "She's got your fire, you know. That spark in her eyes. It's all you." Charlotte's chest tightened, a mix of pride and unease. "She's her own person," she said, her tone sharper than she intended. "Not just mine, not yours either." The words were a reflex, a shield against the vulnerability of letting him in. But as she spoke, she realized they weren't entirely true. Ava's giggle, the way she tilted her head when curious, those were echoes of Adam, traces of a bond she couldn't erase. He turned to her, his gaze searching, unguarded. "I know I don't have a claim to her," he said, his voice quiet but firm. "Not after what I did, but I want to Charlotte. I want to be the father she deserves, and maybe someday the man you can trust again." Her breath caught his words, slicing through the walls she'd built. She wanted to push back, to remind him of the nights she'd cried alone, the years she'd carried Ava's weight without him. But the man sitting beside her wasn't the one who'd left. He was here, showing up, fighting for them in ways she hadn't dared to hope for. "Trust isn't given, Adam," she said, her voice trembling but resolute. "It's earned, and you've got a long way to go." He nodded, his expression solemn, but not defeated. "I know," he said, "but I'm not going anywhere this time. I'll keep showing up as long as it takes." The sincerity in his voice disarmed her, and for a moment, she let herself imagine a world where his words held true, a world where Ava had a father, where Charlotte didn't have to carry the weight alone. The thought was both terrifying and intoxicating, like stepping onto a tightrope without a net. She looked away, her eyes finding Ava, who was now running toward them, her face alight with joy. "Mommy, Daddy," Ava called, her small voice cutting through the park's hum. Charlotte's heart stuttered at the word Daddy, a title Ava had started using after Adam's patient hours of playing, reading, and listening to her endless stories. Charlotte hadn't corrected her, though each utterance felt like a crack in her armor. Adam's smile widened as Ava reached them, her tiny hands grabbing his. "Look," she said, holding up a daisy she'd plucked from the grass. "It's for you." She thrust it at him, and he took it with a reverence that made Charlotte's throat tighten. "Thank you, sweetheart," he said, tucking the flower into his jacket pocket. He lifted Ava onto his lap, her giggles filling the air as he tickled her sides. Charlotte watched, her heart aching with a mix of love and fear. She wanted this moment to last, but the past lingered, a reminder of how quickly promises could break. As Ava scampered off to chase another butterfly, Charlotte spoke, her voice barely above a whisper. "She loves you." She said the words, both a gift and a warning. "Don't break her heart, Adam. I can survive you leaving again." She might not. His gaze met hers, steady and unguarded. I won't. He said, his voice thick with emotion. I've lost too much already. I'm not losing her or you. The words hung between them, fragile but heavy, like the first leaves of autumn drifting to the ground. Charlotte's eyes burned, but she held his gaze, searching for the truth behind his promise. She saw it there in the lines of his face, the quiet determination that had carried him through the chaos of the past weeks. He wasn't the man who'd left her, not entirely. And that realization was both a relief and a new kind of fear. They sat in silence, watching Ava play the park's golden light, wrapping them in a fleeting sense of peace. Charlotte's mind wandered to the nights she'd spent alone, rocking Ava to sleep, whispering promises to keep her safe. She'd done it without him, built a life from the ashes of their past. But now, with Adam beside her, she felt the stirrings of something new, a chance to share the weight, to let someone else carry a piece of her burdens. I don't know what this looks like, she said finally, her voice soft but steady. You and me co-parenting whatever this is, but I'm willing to try for Ava's sake. Not because you saved us, but because she deserves a father who shows up. Adam's eyes softened, a flicker of hope breaking through his guarded expression. That's all I'm asking for, he said, a chance to be better. For her, for you. She nodded, a small gesture that felt monumental. The path ahead was uncertain, paved with the scars of their past and the fragile hope of a new beginning. But as Ava ran back to them, her laughter a melody against the park's hum, Charlotte felt a spark of belief that maybe, just maybe, they could build something worth keeping. The sun dipped lower, casting long shadows across the grass. Ava climbed onto the bench, nestling between them, her small hands linking theirs. Charlotte's heart swelled, the weight of the past easing, if only for a moment. They weren't whole, not yet, but they were here together, under the fading light of a city that never stopped dreaming.